Hospital Porters, Pride and Dignity, Stop the New World Order. Welcome to Panwo TV. It's a lovely day today. It's what is it? It's Wednesday, and it's nice weather. Well, the cloud's gone over now. You say that. Anyway, I'm in my brother's garden, which I've shown you before, and it's the only place to be when the weather's nice. But my own garden's a bit of a dump, actually. Well, it's not even a garden; it's a yard with some dustbins in. Anyway. It's almost a week now since Channel 4 broadcast their wonderful documentary, Confessions of an Alien Abductee. There's a link in the description box to the review I wrote of this production immediately after it was broadcast, which I do urge that you read to give you a little bit of background. Anyway, I had a little bit of a rant about it last night on Panmo Radio as well, so watch out for the podcast when that comes out. Basically, as you probably aware, if you've watched my Amash Vox Populi film, I was a delegate at the second Amash conference back in April, and you remember the videos I made talking to people, going around with a camera and everything. And I spoke to the location director of Off the Fence Productions, who was making a film about the helpline. And do you remember me saying that I was very, very impressed with her? She said to me, I mean, you know what my experiences of the mainstream media are, and sorry, the sun's coming out now. You're all aware of my own experiences of the mainstream media. So I was a bit dubious. I thought, what's Miles and Joanne doing, bringing in a Channel 4, and this Off the Fence Productions company, and I said to myself, but I did, I spoke to this woman and she was giving it to me. She was saying, this has been a life-changing experience for me. I've really learned something. It's been mind-blowing, things like this. And she talked like anyone I'd meet at Exapol or somewhere like that, and I thought to myself, maybe this is it. Maybe this is the breakthrough. We're going to finally get a proper, professional and factual representation of the alien contact subject on prime-time television. Anyway, she told me that the broadcast date was scheduled for October, and I thought, that's a long time to wait, but what the hell. Then, lo and behold, it's suddenly announced that the broadcast has been moved forward to Thursday, June the 13th at 9 PM. And I was thought, well, that's good, we don't have to wait so long. And then I saw another thing on TV, a little advert that told us that it was going to be, the scheduling happened to be parallel to, on Channel 5, 9 PM, that same date, the launch of Big Brother. Well, what are people going to watch? A fascinating program about the fascinating subject of alien contact and abduction and interaction, or the launch of a reality TV show in which a bunch of morons get together and shout and scream at each other for a couple of weeks under CCTV? Well, of course, everyone's going to watch Big Brother, aren't they? Right. Now that was the alarm bells ringing. I think that got the alarm bells ringing. It seemed to be, it could be a coincidence, but if they wanted to schedule it somewhere where it got the minimum number of views possible, minimum number of viewers, that's the ideal time to schedule it. Opposite Big Brother. I also then spoke to one of the cast members who'd been sent a DVD of a preview of the programme, and she was absolutely livid, absolutely furious. And she was almost completely incoherent, so she didn't even tell me what the programme was about, she was so angry. So, well, I started to... What did I say? I watched it anyway. What can I say? It was slightly better than the BBC's Conspiracy Road Trip, UFOs. But that's about the only good thing I can say about it. Now, you probably watched the Amash videos. You know the information they give out. But what did this programme have to broadcast? I've got an alien wife and child. This is the human reproductive organs, and this is where they stick the implants in. Yes, they went for the sensationalist stuff. They portrayed Chantal Piper as this crazy delusional spinster, basically, unable to go out of the house, trembling, sitting there on her own, needing her son for support. They didn't mention that she was a married woman who's still in close contact with her ex-husband. They didn't mention she had a boyfriend. They didn't mention any of these things because it didn't fit in to the fictional image they wanted to paste onto her identity. There was no tribute at all to the enormous courage that woman showed appearing on stage in Amash. I've spoken to her. I've got to know her. She's nothing like how she was portrayed in that programme. Then, of course, we had Marie Kayali and her Polygraph Test. the program, I know they've only it's got to be a 50-minute. It's a 50-minute documentary. They have to cut it down to as to as much as they can. They cut it down to 5 minutes, that scene, and basically the guy with the lie detector walks in, hooks her up to it, they ask her a few questions and says she's failed. It's very, very misleading to say that, because there was all, and then Marie gets angry and says, I don't like being called a liar, and the guy walks out, right? Well, the thing about, you see, the experts don't like calling them lie detectors. That's why they call them polygraphs, because just, it's not making, to say someone fails the polygraph test doesn't mean that they're lying. It just means that their autonomic functions of their body, the breathing, heartbeat, blood pressure, etc., respond to certain questions. It doesn't prove you're lying. That's, you see, this is the thing. And afterwards, if you go to the Megawatts 1066 channel, that's Miles Johnston's channel, you can see the uncut 2-hour version of that, which Miles filmed on his camera. And Miles makes it very clear, you can see very, very clearly that it's a lot more ambiguous than how it's portrayed in that TV documentary. So basically, at the end, it's there's some confusion in Marie's head over some of the questions she's asked, and she thinks she might have answered some of them wrongly. There's also the problem that they have this very sort of passive-aggressive scene where Miles lets Marie into his dark room and says, lift your top up. Well, that's bordering on slanderous, but you can never prove it. It was actually pretty naive of me to feel the hope that I did, that this would be a decent programme. I think, we got to stop going to the mainstream media and asking them nicely if they'll, portray us fairly for a change, and portray the subject fairly for a change. The solution, I think, is to just forget the mainstream media. I mean, Ofcom, a couple of cast members are going to Ofcom to complain. Well, Ofcom must have a queue outside its door of people to do with UFOs waiting to make complaints. Anyway, there's been some major changes since that programme was produced, since it was filmed rather. Miles is no longer involved with the project, he's left. Joanne is now just running it single-handed. But I think, the alien contact phenomenon is not going to go away. And contrary to what you might hear, it didn't begin in 1961 with the Hills case. This is what you often hear, that there was no such thing as alien abductions or alien contact until Betty and Barney Hill. This couple, they were just driving through the countryside one day, and then a UFO lands beside them, and aliens get out, and they have a talk. And right, we're told these were the first abductees. Well, they weren't. They were the first to be publicised. Alien contact experience actually can be traced back much further than that. In fact, it can be traced back through all of human history. You can't actually find a beginning to it, and there's every reason to suppose that people had these kind of experiences in prehistoric times. Therefore, it's extremely likely that people can continue to have these experiences into the future. So there's going to be a role AMASH will play, and other organisations like it, like Mary Rodwell's organisation, CERN, and people like Ellis Taylor. So that basically it was a bit of a very poor show. I mean, the worst bit, the bit that really made me fume, that made me absolutely almost throw my cup of coffee at the TV screen, was when the interviewer tries to play amateur psychologist with Simon Parkes at the end of the programme. I mean, you can follow the links in the description box to where you can watch it on 4OD, and if there's a more permanent link, I'll post that one there. But I mean, it's a disgrace, actually. They said, well, Simon, you had a bad upbringing, you didn't have a father, your mother was an alcoholic, therefore you invented this fantasy. And oh, Simon, to his credit, doesn't spit in this guy's face, which I think he would be entitled to do, and he keeps his cool. I don't think I'd be able to quite so well. I mean, is there anything worse than an amateur psychologist, apart from a professional one? Anyway, I mean, a lot of people have spoken out about this. We have a review from Professor Chris French, MBA, 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 MBA. Yeah. Professor Chris French, who you're all familiar with, I've mentioned him before, has talked about, he's complained, he said that the tone was mean-spirited and patronising. I quite agree with him there. Then he said it lacked any sceptical voices, and he said he was saying that I've got to imitate his voice when I'm reading his words. I can't help it. It's one of the worst documentaries I think I've ever seen in a long time. It left me wondering what on earth Channel 4 was hoping to achieve by broadcasting such a one-sided and mean-spirited programme. And then it goes on to say, the phenomenon of alien abduction claims is a fascinating topic that could have been the subject of a really interesting programme, critically assessing the evidence put forward to support of such claims, and importantly, examining alternative explanations like sleep paralysis and false memories. And he goes on to talk about Nick Pope and how Nick Pope was misquoted. Basically, it's all rather, well, how's it going? Yeah, he says it's a one-sided commentary. It was in fact hard to believe that anyone involved in making or broadcasting this programme, with the exception of the abductees themselves, really believed the accounts given. So Chris French's problem is that there were no skeptics allowed onto the programme to give their side of the story and explain their side. Well, he may be right there, but the thing about it is, it's a moot point. It's really irrelevant when you consider the fact that the other factors that I brought in, the other problems I have with this travesty. I mean, Chris French calls it one-sided, but it wasn't one-sided. It was no-sided. There was not even any discussion of the non-skeptical side of the story that was conducted properly, rationally, and respectfully. So, really, I think it's only when you get over that hurdle that you then have to start bringing in the skeptics and making sure it's balanced. So, I dislike the programme as much as Frenchy does, but for very different reasons. Basically, all I can say to this is I'm going to put the link to 4OD, the 4OD broadcast version is probably still live. So if you go to the article I link in the description box, in that article there's a link to the version of it in 4OD. That link will go dead. That version won't be there forever. What I'll do is when a more permanent link comes up, I will edit that article and I'll put in that permanent link. Alright, so by the time you watch this video, hopefully I've already done that. If not, you can always Google Confessions of an Alien Abductee Off the Fence Productions. Basically, I don't know how to sum this up really, except to say, extremely annoyed by this programme. I wouldn't say disappointed, because really I think any hopes that I had high were false hopes and I shouldn't have had them. I will remain waiting in hope for any proper coverage of this subject in the mainstream media, and I think, like I said, this was really the last straw, and I think we should just give them up on them altogether, become the media, do our own media and forget. I mean, if the newspaper wants to come up and interview you, fine, but just don't touch television, whatever you do. Don't touch mainstream television. I carve it on the side of a cliff. Do not touch mainstream television. If you remember, I was asked to take part in that BBC road trip monstrosity and I refused. I did wonder for a while whether I'd made the right decision there. I wonder no longer. Thank you for watching. Hospital Porters, Pride and Dignity, Stop the New World Order.